Some fears have simple names: fear of heights, fear of the dark. But there's a fear that doesn't get spoken about much, one that lives quietly under health checkups and birthdays and mornings that feel slightly harder than they used to. Tonight on Mindfulness, we're giving that fear the honest attention it deserves through the lens of teachings the Buddha offered specifically for this. We'll begin with the story of a prince who was shielded from every hint of human fragility until he wasn't. From there, we'll move through an ancient set of remembrances, a different way of relating to physical pain, and a handful of practices for meeting your own body with less dread and more presence. If this fear has ever kept you awake, this video is for you. 1. The voice you learned to ignore. Start with the ache itself, because it deserves to be named honestly before anything else. You wake up some mornings and your body simply obeys you, and you don't think about it twice. Other mornings, something is stiff or slow or off in a way you can't quite place, and a small voice asks a question you don't say aloud. Is this the beginning of something? Most of us learn to push that voice away quickly, to call it nothing, to keep moving. But the voice doesn't disappear. It waits in the background of ordinary days, in the extra pause before standing up from a chair, in the way you now read health articles you used to scroll past. This is not weakness. It is honesty trying to surface. Buddhist teaching does not ask you to silence this voice or distract yourself from it with reassurance you don't believe. It asks something harder and, in the end, kinder. It asks you to look directly at what the voice is telling you, because underneath the fear of losing your health is a truth your body has been quietly holding since the day you were born. You were never promised permanence. No one was. Not the athlete, not the healer, not the monk who sits in stillness for hours. The body all of us carry is, by its very nature, a changing thing, moving through its own seasons, whether we agree to it or not. What the fear is actually asking, underneath the worry about the next test result or the next birthday, is simpler and older than any of that. It is asking whether you can find steadiness in a body you cannot hold still. That question is where this teaching begins. 2. The prince who could not be sheltered. Long before he was called the Buddha, he was a young prince named Siddhartha, raised inside a palace built, according to the traditional accounts, specifically to keep him from ever seeing suffering. His father wanted him surrounded only by youth, health, and pleasure, believing that if the boy never witnessed pain, he would never be drawn toward a spiritual life and would instead inherit the kingdom. The old accounts describe how, on a series of journeys outside the palace walls, the sheltered prince encountered what tradition calls the 4 sights. First, an old man, bent and frail, moving slowly through the road. Then a person suffering from illness, weakened and in pain. Then a corpse being carried to its final rites. And finally, a wandering ascetic, calm despite having nothing. What the stories emphasize is not that Siddhartha learned facts he hadn't known before. Everyone technically knows that people age, sicken and die. What struck him, the accounts say, was the enormous gap between knowing this quietly at a distance and truly letting it become real. He realized that his own healthy young body, so easy to trust that morning, was walking the exact same road as the frail old man he had just seen, not someday, in theory, already from the moment of his birth. This recognition is traditionally described as the turning point that sent him searching for a path beyond suffering. Not a way to escape aging, illness, and death, because the teaching never claims that is possible. A way to meet them without being shattered by them. That search became the foundation of everything that followed, and it began with an honest look at exactly the fear so many of us still carry about our own bodies today. 3. 5 truths worth repeating. One of the oldest collections of the Buddha's teachings offers a set of reflections meant to be considered often, not once. They are sometimes called the 5 remembrances, and their honesty can feel almost startling the first time you sit with them. You are of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. You are of the nature to become ill. There is no way to escape illness. You are of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. Everything dear to you and everyone you love will change and be parted from you, and your actions are the only thing that truly belongs to you, the ground you stand on. Read quickly, these can sound bleak. Read slowly, in the quiet of an evening like this one, they do something different. They stop asking you to be surprised by your own body's changes. Surprise is where so much of our suffering actually lives, not in the illness itself, but in the shock of it, the sense that something has gone wrong, that this wasn't supposed to happen to me, not yet, not like this. The traditional purpose of these reflections was never to frighten a practitioner into despair. It was to remove the element of shock, so that when aging or sickness eventually arrived, as they arrive for every being who has ever lived, they would be met as expected weather rather than a personal betrayal. This is a difficult teaching to sit with, and it should be. But there is a strange relief hidden inside it too. If everyone's body ages, if every healer eventually needs healing, then your own aging body is not a private failure. It is simply what it means to be a living being at all. 4. A guest, not a possession. There is a practice found across many Buddhist traditions called mindfulness of the body, and one part of it asks the practitioner to consider the body honestly, piece by piece. Not to create disgust or despair, but to loosen the quiet, unspoken belief many of us carry that this body is fixed, solid, and permanently ours in its current form. Consider how strange it is that the body you have at this moment did not exist a decade ago in the same way, and will not exist a decade from now in the same way either. The skin renews itself. The strength you had at 20 is not identical to the strength you have now, no matter how well you have cared for yourself. This is not decline in the way we usually fear the word. It is simply the nature of anything made of changing conditions, which is the nature of every physical thing, without exception. Many people, when they first encounter this teaching, worry that seeing the body this clearly will make them careless with it or hopeless about it. In practice, the opposite tends to happen. When you stop pretending your body is a fixed possession you either keep or lose, you start relating to it more like a guest you are honored to host for a while. Guests are cared for attentively precisely because their stay is not permanent. You water a garden you know will one day return to the earth. You do not water it less because of that. You may, in fact, water it more carefully. This is the quiet shift the teaching is pointing toward. Not indifference to your health, but a different relationship to it. One built on clear seeing rather than quiet denial. A relationship where care replaces both fear and false certainty. 5. The second layer. Here is something worth noticing in your own experience, because it happens more often than most people realize. Physical discomfort and mental suffering are not always the same event, even though they arrive together so quickly that they feel identical. Think of an ordinary headache. There is the sensation itself, a real physical event in the body. And then there is often a second layer that follows almost instantly, a story about the sensation. This headache means something is wrong with me. This is starting earlier than it used to. I am not as strong as I once was. That second layer is not the pain. It is commentary added on top of the pain, and it is where a great deal of the suffering around illness actually lives. Buddhist teaching draws a careful distinction here. Physical pain, when it comes, is largely unavoidable for a being with a body. Aging brings its aches. Illness brings its discomfort. This much the teaching does not deny or minimize. But the layer of dread, self-judgment and catastrophizing that so often gets added on top of physical sensation is a separate event, one shaped by the mind rather than by the body itself, and one that can, with practice, be met differently. This does not mean pretending discomfort away or performing calm you do not feel. It means learning to notice the moment when a physical sensation turns into a story, and meeting that story with a little more space. The stiffness in your back is one thing. The spiral of worry about what the stiffness means for the rest of your life is another thing entirely, arriving a half second later, uninvited. Learning to feel the first without automatically inheriting the second is not a small skill. It is, in many respects, close to the center of this entire path. 6. The same law works both ways. There is a comfort in this teaching that is easy to miss if you only hear the part about impermanence and stop there. The same law that says your strength will not stay exactly as it is also says your weakness will not stay exactly as it is either. Illness, when it visits, feels endless while it is happening. A difficult week in a difficult body can make it seem as though this discomfort is now simply who you are. But look honestly at your own history, and you will likely find that this has rarely been permanently true. The cold passed, the injury healed enough to walk again. Even chronic conditions tend to move through their own seasons, better weeks and harder ones, rather than sitting perfectly still. This is not a promise that every illness resolves, because that would not be honest, and this teaching values honesty over comfort. Some conditions do remain, some changes do not reverse. But even within those circumstances, the felt experience of them is rarely static in the way fear predicts it will be. There are harder days and gentler ones. There is a difference between a body that is struggling and a mind that has decided the struggle defines everything about a life. The traditional teaching on impermanence was never meant to be only sobering. It was meant to be, in its own quiet way, freeing. If nothing stays fixed, then the difficult season you may be walking through right now is not a life sentence either. This is not a call to false optimism, waiting passively for things to improve. It is simply an honest reminder that the same current carrying away your strength is also the current that keeps every condition, including painful ones, in motion rather than frozen in place. 7. What the practice actually looks like. So what does a person actually do with all of this? Not as abstract philosophy, but on an ordinary Tuesday, in an ordinary body, with an ordinary list of small worries about health sitting quietly in the back of the mind. The first practical step in this tradition is simple attention. Not obsessive checking, not anxious scanning for symptoms, but a settled, regular noticing of the body as it actually is right now, rather than as memory or fear paints it. A few minutes spent simply feeling the breath move, feeling the weight of the body in the chair, without adding commentary, is itself considered a form of practice. It trains the mind to meet the body directly, instead of meeting only your ideas and fears about the body, which are so often harsher than the reality. This is sometimes taught as a walking practice too, feeling each foot touch the ground, noticing the small, ordinary mechanics of a body that carries you without complaint most of the time. It sounds almost too simple to matter, and yet this simple attention is the beginning of everything else. The second practical step is the honest inclusion of care within this understanding. Some approaches assume that accepting impermanence means abandoning effort, but that is a misunderstanding of the teaching. Caring for this body, eating in a way that supports it, resting when it asks for rest, seeking help from those trained to give it, is not in conflict with accepting its impermanent nature. A gardener who accepts that every plant eventually withers still waters the garden faithfully every single day. The acceptance and the care are not opposites. They support each other. In fact, a person who has made peace with the body's eventual decline often cares for it more attentively than one still quietly pretending decline will never come, because there is no more energy wasted on denial. All of it can go toward tending what is actually here. The third step is a quieter, more internal practice. It involves extending a kind of goodwill toward your own body, rather than treating it as an opponent to be monitored with suspicion. Many people speak to their own aging or unwell bodies with a harshness they would never use with a friend. Traditional teachings on loving kindness are usually described as extending outward toward other beings, but the same quality of warmth can be turned toward this particular body, this particular life, exactly as it is today, not with denial about its limits, but without the added cruelty of contempt for having limits at all. Try, sometime this week, silently wishing your own body well the way you might wish a tired friend well. It is a small gesture, and it tends to soften something that has been clenched for a long time. And finally, there is the practice of gratitude that asks nothing dramatic of you. Simply noticing on an ordinary morning when nothing hurts that nothing hurts. Most of us only notice the body when it complains. There is a quiet richness available in noticing it on the days it does not, in feeling the ordinary miracle of breath moving easily, of legs that carry you without protest. This is not about performing positivity. It is about paying the kind of attention that turns an unnoticed, ordinary morning into something closer to what it actually is, which is a gift with no promised second delivery. These four movements, steady attention, sincere care, inner kindness, and quiet gratitude, are not complicated. None of them require certainty about how your health will unfold. They only require a willingness to meet the body you actually have today, rather than the one memory insists you used to have, or fear insists you are about to lose. 8. Diligence, not dread. There is a word used often in the earliest Buddhist texts, one that captures something essential about how this whole teaching is meant to be lived. The word is usually translated as heedfulness or diligence, and it describes a particular quality of attention. Not anxious vigilance and not careless drifting, but a clear, steady awareness that time and health are not infinite, held without panic. In one of the final teachings attributed to the Buddha, delivered near the end of his own life, He is recorded as telling those gathered around him that all conditioned things are subject to decay, and urging them to continue their practice with diligence. This was not spoken as a threat. It was spoken, according to the traditional account, as a final gift, an invitation to take seriously the practice available in this very moment rather than postponing it toward a future that was never guaranteed to any of his listeners and is never guaranteed to us either. This is worth sitting with honestly. The Buddha himself, according to the tradition, aged. He experienced physical discomfort in his later years, and the texts do not hide this or smooth it over for the sake of a tidier story. He walked long distances on tired legs well into old age. He died, as every teacher in that lineage since has died, as every reader of these words eventually will. The path he taught was never presented as a way to avoid this. It was presented as a way to walk toward it awake, rather than being dragged toward it in denial. There is something quietly moving in that. A teacher who did not exempt himself from the very truth he was teaching, who let his own body demonstrate the lesson rather than only describing it in words. This reframes the fear you may have carried into this evening. The fear of losing your health and vitality often assumes that health and vitality are the true prize, and their loss is the tragedy to be avoided at all costs. The teaching offers something different, not colder but wider. It suggests that a life lived with clear awareness of the body's true nature, cared for without being clung to, is itself the deeper form of vitality. Not the strength of muscles or the number on a medical chart, but the quiet steadiness of a mind that is no longer at war with its own changing body. Consider what changes when this steadiness is actually present. A minor illness no longer feels like proof that everything is falling apart. A harder season in the body no longer erases the memory of easier ones or the possibility of gentler ones ahead. Even the eventual inevitable decline that comes with age can be met with something closer to acceptance than terror, because it was never a surprise waiting to ambush you. It was always the honest shape of a body, seen clearly and cared for anyway. You do not need to resolve this fear tonight or ever in some final and complete way. You only need to begin relating to it differently, starting with the very next time you notice discomfort or the very next ordinary morning you wake up without any. Both moments are equally real. Both are equally worthy of your honest attention. The practice is simply choosing to meet them as they are, rather than through the fear of what they might become. That choice, made quietly and repeated often, is itself the beginning of the freedom this teaching has always pointed toward. Your body will change. This was never in question, for you or for anyone who has ever lived, including the Buddha himself. What remains genuinely open is how you meet that change with clear eyes or with quiet dread. Tonight, you have sat with an old and honest teaching about a fear most people carry silently. Let that be enough for now. Rest well, care for the body you have today, and walk into tomorrow a little more awake than you were this morning.